All right, Bob Warburton, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, Greg. How you doing?
I am 6 a.m. right now out here in San Diego. So good Padres win last night. You got your Phillies hat on. Should have wore the Padres hat.
Yeah,
Uh,
got to represent my Phillies. Win or lose, having a great year. So we've been kind of playing around online, kind of jabbing each other a little bit. So it's a fun series.
yeah, for sure. I got to say, man, you're the Eagles are looking solid too. So you got some good sports teams you're rooting for. So man, they were solid the other night. Were they 6-0? So anyway, let's get into some real estate stuff. So we got on here to talk real estate, not sports. Maybe we'll talk a little sports at the end. I don't know too much about you. We've interacted a few times on the phone, but I know that you're doing big things in the Delaware market. So before we get into what you're doing in real estate, like how did you get into the game?
Okay. Um, yeah, I've always been interested in real estate. I was in medical sales for years, but always kind of wanted to do real estate. I always joke my favorite game as a kid. We used to play Monopoly nonstop. Which is basically buy and hold.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it at the time, but just the idea of acquiring assets, and that was our favorite game down the beach. We'd play that in the afternoons. But it was in medical sales, so it gave me a lot of flexibility as far as my time, and was always entrepreneurial. Always wanted to work for myself, start my own business, and real estate really just kind of, I gravitated towards real estate. And, very similar to a lot of people, where we were just watching late night infomercials one night, late night down the beach. All my friends were asleep at our group beach house, and I was watching Ron LeGrand, who's like an OG guy from
Yeah.
Jacksonville, and just kind of got pulled into the funnel of getting the free information, going to a one day, and then joining, going to seminars, and just gone from there. Since I was in medical sales, I was outside it, and I never had a 9 to 5 office job, so I've been always able to kind of fit in, this on the side. And I finally pulled the trigger and left my company, which was a great job. Medical sales, dealing with cardiology offices and hospitals is great. It was a lot of security and safety, but I knew I wanted to work for myself and do my own thing. So I decided to leave and start my own business in 2006. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
great time. Everything was rolling. Nothing was going to happen in the late 2000s.
Glory
Yeah,
days.
yeah, it's gonna keep sailing, man. We're just gonna keep rolling. So 2006, amazing. 2007, a little bit, well, not quite as good as 2006. And then, of course, as we all know, the bottom fell out in 2008. But I mean, the way I like to look at it in hindsight was I'm glad I took the jump then, because if I didn't, I might not have ever. I mean, I would. There's no way I'm quitting my stable job in 2009. I can tell you that. So there were a couple lean years, but I came out the end stronger and meaner, I guess,
Yeah.
But if I waited, who knows, 2011, 12, 13, next thing you know, it's 10 years later and I didn't take the jump. So I've been doing this for quite a long time. I do live in Wilmington, Delaware, which we had talked earlier. We are a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm about half an hour south of Philadelphia. So I do work Delaware. I do work the Philly metro area, and those are my two main areas. I do dabble around the rest of the country a little bit, but those are my main areas.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're saying the Delaware market and the Philly market because I was not doing this business in 2006 and 7. I was in middle school actually. I mean I'm 27. Yeah, so that was a long time ago. But anyway, didn't like the
Lots
Philly.
changed.
Yes, a lot has changed for sure. Didn't the Northeast not get hammered as hard as like Arizona and Las Vegas and Southern California? Like it wasn't
Yeah,
as bad. It's still bad though, right?
yeah. I mean, I used to go to events around the country, and there so much is different back then. How we, and that's one of the things, how to stay on top of things, because if you're doing business the way you did in 2007, you're out of business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd go to events, and in 2006, 2005, I was still just kind of part-time doing a couple deals a year, and just talk to somebody from Miami or Phoenix or Vegas. Oh my gosh, we just put an option on a house, and it, by the time construction finished, it went up 40 grand. We never, or we're seeing, this unbelievable, and I would be just jealous coming home, like, man. So we had a little bit more conservative growth, a little bit more steady. less wild speculation, less, huge construction. I mean, this area goes back to William Penn in the 1600s. So there's houses that are, going way, way back. I know, a house that was built in the 1800s, so there's old houses. So this area, there's not as much new construction as you start going down to lower Delaware there are. So there was less, we definitely saw less foreclosure crisis. It was bad, but nowhere near as bad as some of those other areas. So we had the drops. So I like to think we didn't have this unbelievable steep curve up, and as opposed to having also that unbelievable steep curve down, we had a little bit more of a flatter curve. So it was it worked out good for me because it wasn't as bad as I know after talking to some of the other people in '09 and '10 how terrible it was in those other markets. So yeah.
Yeah, like the Phoenix, and even now, like we do a little bit of, like you said, like some virtual stuff in like completely different markets. And we had one in Phoenix, this is or Mesa, this was like 3 months ago. And I thought we were going to be able to sell this thing in a week. And it took us like 3 or 4 weeks just because the market in Phoenix already started to go down. And I was like, whoa, this is, it's interesting how fast they go up and then really how fast they go down. It's like seeing that firsthand. It was interesting. This was a few months ago now. And it's even completely different now. If we had that same house now, I don't know, we might not have been able to sell it. So anyway.
Yeah, that Phoenix market is the epicenter of Guru Central, and I follow
Yeah.
guys, and I couldn't imagine working there primarily, but I'm hearing they're, oh my gosh, they're like doom and gloom right now, and I'm like, we're still getting over asking price on all of our wholesale deals. Our rentals are doing great, and our fix and flips, we're knock on wood, we're still doing good. It's just such a lack of inventory. So again, I'm hearing them and those guys out there really, the market's really dramatically dropped, and I'm not quite seeing it yet. So I mean, it will come, but I think we'll be prepared for it.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I always say the Northeast, I mainly do business in New York, and that area is expensive. Not San Diego expensive, but it hasn't gotten impacted like you said, like these Phoenix and San Diego, where like it's just no one's buying anymore. Like people are still buying. Yeah, prices might have flattened out a little bit, but it like San Diego substantially has dropped. Like there's a property I was involved in. ARV was 840. Now it's 775, like straight up. So that's just the way it rolls, at least in the high priced areas. So let's fast forward into your business. So you've been doing this for a while. You got a lot of experience. What does your business look like today in terms of like types of exit strategies? Because you mentioned three right there. And it seems like you're well versed in all different types of deals. So it's always cool to see what other investors are doing to have success with all their leads, right? Because not everyone's going to fit in one box.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you just have one tool in your toolbox, you're just gonna waste a lot of leads, spend a lot of
Yeah.
money. So I go in looking at every lead as if I'm going to take it down myself.
Okay.
And if I'm going to take it down and buy it myself, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to do option one, do a full rehab, fix and flip, which I'm in the middle of one now, doing a massive, $100,000 renovation job on a property. Or are we going to do a light rehab, which I'm closing on in October 28th? So next week from when we're recording right now. So that's you always hear the cliche carpet and paint. And that's literally what we're doing: carpeting, some painting, and a couple minor things. So that'll be done in about a month. So that's a light rehab or a whole tail, kind of what some people take. But we are taking it down, taking ownership, and we'll put it back on the market. If we do, if the other option would be is, which I'm really heavily involved in, is buy and hold, because I really feel that wholesaling and flipping is a job and it's taxed at the highest rate.
Yeah.
And it's an endless hamster cycle. As soon as you're done, you're out of business. I was always told, as soon as you get that check, you're out of business. You got to go get another deal. So I'm getting more and more buy and hold properties. We have some triplexes, some fourplexes, a lot of single family townhouses, which are really big here on the East Coast, and ranch houses. I was looking at a house. If it's like the one that I'm taking down on the 28th, it's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, colonial, 2-car garage, 2,000 square feet. That's a flip. That's never going to cash flow for me personally, so we decide what I'm going to do. And then depending on how my crews are doing, there's finding good contractors is tough,
Very
so if
tough.
you're, yeah, everybody says, oh, when you have rentals, buy and hold, oh, you're dealing with the tenants. And believe, I think the tenants are better than the contractors sometimes.
Oh yeah. Oh, big time. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So we got to decide if we're going to keep it as a rental, and we've been buying more and more rentals. So if it doesn't look like it's a rental, um, and it's a and I'm heavily involved in a bunch of fix and flips, then we'll decide to wholesale it. So those are, full fix and flip, light rehab, buy and hold rental. And then from there, we can be doing some sort of, I'm heavily involved in a lot of creative financing. So if I can go sub two on a subject, buying the property subject to the existing financing, we're loving that. I'm evaluating a deal right now on that. We do a couple of those. And I'm in Pace Morby, big shout out to Pace. I'm in his program. And so he's really big on creative financing and subject to. So if I can do that, I'll take those down. So sub two and creative is not necessarily an exit strategy. It's a function of buy and hold. You can wholesale those, but I think it's a sin. Why would you ever wholesale unless you're brand new? But if you can get a great creative finance deal or a sub two deal, I highly recommend keeping those, because I've been hearing a great phrase. Somebody said, you're buying the debt. It might even been Pace. You're buying the debt now as opposed to the house. And if you can buy a house with 3.25% fixed rate that's 10 years old, and the interest has already been paid off for 10 years, you'd be crazy to sell that.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. Yeah.
so those are my main exit strategies. And then I'm really hyped on creative and sub two. We do a lot of I just did an 8 property refinance, um, all at once. I waited a little too long. I wish I did it in December, the rates, but I still did okay. I finished it up in the summer. We got, at the time I thought it was highway robbery 5.75, but everything's relative
That's
now. It's
great compared to what it is right now, man. That's perfect. I'd take
so
that all day long.
6 months later, it's like, hey, that's not so bad. But back in, I might have been in the low fives or in the high fours in 2021. But oh my God, I'd rather go get a colonoscopy than do that again. Just dealing with the banks and every day.
Horrible, man.
It's just, that's why I really got into with the sub two and creative, is if you can, you know, work with a homeowner directly. And, I'd rather, get involved with the bank of, Mr. and Mrs. Seller than Bank of America's, because it's just so much easier.
100%, man. I say the hardest part, I've done the burr, like that's how I have my properties. Like the hardest part of the burr is the R, or the refinance part. Like just going through that rigmarole and getting jerked around. And yeah, no, if you can, with the subject too, if you can take a rental on and take that owner's payment over, especially now, because if these people are in trouble now and they got their loan 3 years ago, they're going to be at like, sub 3.5%. It's a complete no brainer. And even the owner carry too. I mean, I did an owner carry deal in San Diego, and it was a 0% interest deal. Like we didn't even mention the word interest. It never even came up. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
this is your price. I can do your price at my terms. And he didn't care.
We just
So
sit, yeah, I love the zero. Okay, well, your equity is, um, you know, $8,000. So if we, how long would you like to carry that? Okay, can we? So if we divide that by 20 years, it's here.
yeah,
It is. But you're right.
that
The
was
word
it.
never comes up. Interest. Ronald Grant used to say, interest. That's for bankers. They collect interest. We're just people here.
He's a
So
classic, man. He's been around for so long. Yeah, he's interest. That's for bankers. I mean, I'll
that,
still do one with interest if the numbers
that's
make sense,
what he used to
but
say. That's for bankers. Yeah. Oh
that's for
yeah.
bankers.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't lead.
Now, I want
But
them to
yeah, I mean,
discover that.
obviously,
That's awesome. So you
so
you got a lot of exit strategies. So I got some questions for you about your rentals, because this is something that people miss. They get involved in the flipping wholesaling business. They make a lot of money, or they quit their job, whatever. But the truth is, it is an active income operation. I love that's how we make the majority of our money, at least me. Like but at the end of the day, they call it the hamster wheel with diamonds, right? So what are you doing? I mean, because you're in the Delaware area basically. Because I've we do some deals in Delaware now, and I've noticed that in Delaware, at least the rents do not seem as high as I at least thought, because I'm a New York guy. So I was thinking like these rents were going to be like my area, but the taxes at the same time are very low in Delaware. So like, what do you do to like evaluate a rental deal? Because I just, for me, coming from my market, like the rents just don't seem very high. So that was just a little bit of a challenge I was looking at when I was trying to keep a few of these
Yeah.
properties.
Well, it all comes down to how you, I mean, we make our money when everybody
Bye.
out there you should be saying, yeah, exactly, when we buy the house. It all comes down to that. But yeah, so this is a very low property tax state.
Yes.
It's becoming, especially downstate, is unbelievably low, and it's a huge area where people are moving to. So, like we talked about earlier, interest rates, 5.75 6 months ago seemed outrageous. Today seems great. Well, everything's relative. And we get so many people from New York and Pennsylvania moving down here. And, every people always complain, oh, blah, blah, everything is terrible where you are. Oh, this is high, that's high. And then you talk to somebody who comes from New York and they're like, or New Jersey, I was paying $20,000 a year in property
Oh
taxes.
yeah. Yeah,
So it's all relative. Pennsylvania property taxes are really high. I don't buy rentals in PA or New Jersey. Because their property taxes are really high. Now, yes, also the rents are a little bit lower, but they still cash flow for me dramatically. I mean, the 1% rule is something you could look at on a piece of paper just to see if it's a deal or not. But we have a pretty good spreadsheet we dive into, and all our properties will cash flow because you have to buy it right.
yeah.
So we're not buying big 4-bedroom colonials in the suburbs that are not going to cash flow. But I love little townhouses, interior townhouses, which
Yeah, those are great.
and they're a little bit older. I mean, we're buying houses for 50 or 60, putting 20 into it to rent, 1,500, 1,300. So that works all day long. Or we're buying a ranch and be all in for about 150, 160, and they're renting for 17, 1,800. So with the low taxes, it works out well. Now, the one thing that Delaware does have, which is outrageous, is we have a very high transfer tax
Oh,
rate,
it's
and that just kills.
disgusting.
Yeah,
4%. I was almost threw up the first house I bought in Delaware. I was with Brian Funk. I was like calling him. I'm like, hey, what's up with this? Like, I never seen this before. And he's like, oh yeah, that's how it is. And I was like blown away.
it used to be 3%,
Yeah.
half split by the buyer, half split by the seller, and that was outrageous. And they snuck that in a couple of years ago, and it's funny because I go to the in Wilmington, the downtown Y, which has been a staple in the community, and Delaware's so small. You can see I'll see our governor in there. I'll see one of our senators. So I grab them and I say, hey, shaking his hand and let go. I was like, what's up with this transfer tax? You just that wasn't me. That was the legislator. So, but yeah, that's brutal. So one more reason why I hate selling, because I hate paying that transfer tax on the back end, plus realtor commissions on the back end. So we do a lot of coaching for new people, and a friend of mine, we have a RIA, we work with that, and we did a class at Delaware Technical Community College, and also in our RIA for newer students. One of the things I say is that the fix and flipping and the wholesaling is the sexy business. Big chunks of change where you're going to be taxed heavily, and via income tax and also via transfer taxes. So it's one more reason why I like buy and hold, because it's got so many benefits of depreciation, appreciation, leverage, and much lower taxes, be it transfer taxes or income taxes. So that's why I really liked it. And it's also, I quit my job, so I don't have a pension. So that's my retirement down the road. I do love, and that's the other beauty, is a cash out refinance. I know it's a pain in the neck, but once you get it done, that's completely tax-free money. And it can even go right into your own personal pocket. It doesn't even have to go into your company. I, talk to my accountant, and that's completely tax-free. So, when you're old and gray and you've got a bunch of properties, I don't plan on selling them. I love that phrase, refi till you die.
Yeah.
So, instead of selling and paying that ungodly Delaware transfer tax and then, capital gains, if you refinance, especially if we get, and rates will come down again eventually, and you got that money, and you can basically just, live on that money if you want. Or what I'm doing now is taking that, redeploying the money. I don't like to see debt equity where you're I had 8 properties that were free and clear, and I was kind of under that mindset of, it's a little bit more conservative mindset of like, we'll get like 20 or 30 properties, have them all paid off. But I learned, and it's different philosophy. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but especially in growth mode, which I'm in, is you've got to get that equity working for you. And if it's just sitting there, it's dead. You're losing against inflations. So get that money out, use it to buy new properties or reinvest in your business. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's smart too, because at the end of the day, especially the last 2 or 3 years, I can imagine Delaware was, people, and that's the thing too, like in the Northeast, in like New York, it's like people retire, they go to Delaware, they go to South Carolina, they go to these states that are a little bit more tax friendly. Like, it's an expensive place to live. It's, New York City is the biggest city in the country. So no, that makes a lot of sense, man. It makes a lot of sense, and it's smart how you're doing your business where you're not just, dealing with these fix and flips and wholesales for these big paychecks. You're actually buying these rentals the right way in a great market, and you're keeping them for the long term. And I know exactly what you're talking about now with these properties that actually cash flow. It's the stuff in Wilmington, right? I'm sure some of the city properties that you can get cheap. And then there's a lot of these townhouses in like Newark and Bear, where they're in like these PUD communities, and they're not like Beverly Hills, but you could tell like you don't have a lot of maintenance. You got 2 walls you're responsible for. So I know exactly like those
Yeah,
types of properties. I could see those making a lot of sense as rentals.
I like I like ranches too.
Okay.
A 3-2 is perfect. A 3-1, a 3-1.5. The very first house I bought that I moved into, and I still own it as a rental, it was an exterior townhouse. So as an owner, you're like, oh yeah, I got outside windows, I got a little side yard. And then as a landlord, you're like, oh no, I got outside windows, I got brick and siding to deal with. I got to walk away with concrete. There's a fence, extra. So it's just more work. So I love the interior townhouses. I don't think that you get any difference in rent. We've
Yeah.
got one right now that's, it's just more trash gets on there. I've got a fence, grass, just people walk, and then there's outside windows. So if you've got an interior, you just got maintenance. So as you become a landlord, you're like, how can we eliminate expenses? And I love the interior ones. I don't see the prices that much lower, and the rents I don't see that much lower. You might get a little bit cheaper on your purchase price, but it's just, how can I make things easier as far as turning them over and long-term maintenance.
100%.
So yeah, it all comes down to get good deals, Greg.
You got to get good deals. You got to buy that deal right. So a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go here, Bob. Are you involved in like the slower lower, or do you pretty much focus on Newcastle County? Because Delaware is a small state, but I mean the difference between the bottom of the state and the top of the state is huge. I've
Yeah,
learned
I
that the
mean
hard way.
it is funny because like you can go from east to west. You could go out for a Sunday afternoon drive, and you can be in all 4 states in like an hour. You could
Yeah.
you could start in Delaware, go
Yeah.
to Maryland, 10 minutes to the west, then you go north about 2 miles, you're in the Pennsylvania, come back around, go over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, you're in Jersey. So, you could literally in 2 hours be in 4 states.
Yeah.
So everything's super small. And Delaware from top to, from east to west is about, at the top is like 20 minutes. You can go from Jersey to Maryland in 20 minutes. And we always laugh because we have I-95, and we nail people on tolls. You're there for 12 miles, and you
Yeah.
get
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I go to the shore,
that.
brutal. Dude.
Low, yeah, and from top to bottom is 2 hours. We have 3 counties. We have just around 1 million people, and people thinking like Texas 2 hours, that's like one county. But the difference between northern Delaware and, like you just said, it's slower lower Delaware is like night and day. It's just completely different. They like to think they're, down in the south, and we're the city slickers, I guess, up here. That's what they look at us as. But yeah, completely different. A lot more. It's a little bit more rural, but we do have beautiful beaches. Come to Delaware. We have amazing, maybe not as cool as San Diego, but we have great here on the East Coast in Delaware. And once you get west of that, you can get some good deals on properties, and that's where in Sussex County, that lower county, we have unbelievable low property taxes, and it's a great retirement area. But there's a lot of septic systems, which I hate. I mean, it's super difficult to wholesale a property with a septic system because, we're like, it's as is, and they want to do a septic. You don't know. I mean, it's one thing to look at the roof and not quite know if you got to replace a roof or not,
Yeah.
but a septic system could be $30,000. So those are some of the, when you're out, and it's a lot harder to comp when you're out in a rural
Oh
area.
yeah.
You're on a country road, and it could be a ranch, then a two-story house, then it could be a mobile home, then it could be a chicken farm,
Yeah,
so
it's so funny. That's exactly what I realized. I'm actually wholesaling a house right now in Harrington, and I had to call the septic company before I got on the line with you because it's 3 hours ahead, and the guy's got to go back to then do another inspection, and I'm going to get the reduction from the seller. But yeah, anytime you're dealing with a septic, it's difficult to deal with buyers because it is an as is sale, but then like that's a big ticket item, so it's very tricky.
I could make that's the difference between profit and no profit, 30 grand.
100%.
And I'm, like I said, I'm a city slicker, so this whole idea of septics. I have a property down in kind of a resort area where I took it over. We got our fingers crossed. It's hanging on. The septic system. It's a little bit older, but there's a huge, beautiful neighborhood of like $600,000 houses that are wrapped around this little mobile home community. So it's coming. I spoke to the county. They're like, all right, they're coming in, and once it comes in, you'll be able to tie in for a couple $1,000s. So that is like I don't like to speculate and buy, but that's like a huge, I'm just hanging on. When that comes in, it'll really dramatically increase the value.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Bob, listen, you covered a lot of ground today. I really like your strategy with rentals and really how you've hung in there ever since, since 2006, when obviously was not easy to be a real estate, or 2008, sorry, when it wasn't easy to be a real estate investor. So appreciate your time. If people want to follow you, connect with you, learn from you, what is the best way for people to find out if you have anything to offer, and then also follow you on social media?
well, yeah, reach out to me on Instagram is probably the best way. It's my name at Bob Warburton, Warburton. I'm also on Facebook with my name too. If you've got deals in the Philly, Delaware area, love to joint venture with you. Also, I forgot to tell you, one of the things I do work in is a lot of probate, and I specialize in that. I help people around the country. So if you've got deals around the country and you need a little bit of help, I'd be glad to jump on a call with you, and kind of give you the ins and outs on how probate deals work, that's a whole nother podcast. It's
That's a
completely,
gold mine.
it's a whole nother process. You can't just go in with the "we buy houses" message. So,
Yeah.
uh, hit me up with that. I'll be glad to go over some of that with you.
Awesome. Bob Warburton on Instagram. We'll put all that in the show notes. And Bob, listen, appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'm sure we'll talk soon, my friend.
All right, go Phillies.
Goes Padres.